好，那我们下一场就进行关于这一次的另外一个大家很好奇也期待的一个部分呢，就是 AI 跟呃佛典翻译之间的关系。那这个题目其实也很难在15分钟讲完，那希望大家听完以后会有一些收获。那今天的主讲者是 Naman Tingley，他目前是在BDRC 蒙 m AI 计划还有 Indra Jala 的计划。在做相关的跟科技藏文佛典的资讯处理等等相关的工作上面，在进行跟很大的一个团队一起努力。那我们现在就请他跟我们分享一下他们目前的工作近况，谢谢。
Okay. Uh, hello, hello everyone. Yeah, so it's in yeah, I'm very humbled uh, to be able to you know present, especially in front of Peter Skilling and all the CBeta team. So yeah, CBeta actually is much more advanced in many ways than what I'm working on. So I'm working on the mainly AI for Tibetan translation. So right now we work, the main project I'm working on, right now is a project called Malam AI. Maybe those who study or read Tibetan might be familiar with the Malam dictionary. It's a 200 volume dictionary. And so anyway, so BDRC, a team in Berkeley and a team in Hamburg University and um, Cambridge, are collaborating with all put our, resources and knowledge together. And so we're working on, so AI on 3 different areas. So machine translation, OCR, and speech to text for Tibetan. So machine translation between Tibetan and English. And we're also starting between Tibetan and Sanskrit and Tibetan and Pali. We just had like a model, a model that was trained that finished training a few days ago, actually for Sanskrit and Pali to Tibetan. And we presented it to Professor Samdar Muche. Maybe some of you are familiar. He's like the best Sanskrit scholars in the Tibetan community. And yeah, he was really impressed. He was like, wow, I don't know a single translator these days who would be able to write such a good Tibetan when translating, from Pali. So he said there are a lot of factual errors that needs a little bit of fixing. But what he was the most impressed with, was uh, the syntax and the style. It was really the model could reproduce the style of the Tibetan canon, and so which is quite difficult for modern translators. Anyway, and so yeah, so today I was asked to present, so to talk about to do a demo of the work we're doing, and to give an introduction to uh, AI in general, and talk a little bit about what these ChatGPT and LLMs actually are, because it seems like especially in the Buddhist communities, there is like a lot of misunderstanding, fears, hopes, and a lot of feelings that creates a lot of drama. And so, yes, I'll try to, cover that, very quickly using some slides, some very good slides from, other people. Anyway, and and then I was asked also to share some ideas on, what can be done with AI, for Buddhist studies, Buddhist translation, etc., in the future. And so, so that's the third, topic I'm going to cover. Okay, so with the Manlam AI project, so the core, the Manlam AI project mainly focuses on gathering training data. And so with AI, like the key is to have uh, training data to be able to train models. So with AI, training models is kind of like what everyone is excited about, meaning the tech, communities usually like, yeah, you'll very easily find people to train models. But gathering data, cleaning up data, preparing it, improving it, etc. This is really the dirty work that, people are very rarely interested in doing. And it is actually, probably around like, 80%, at least 80% of the work of training models. And so my role in, this project is mainly actually, preparing data. And so what we're looking at here is, basically every existing translations between Tibetan and English. So we started last year, and so we put together a team of around like 200 people in India, and we just started to find books, scan them, OCR them, clean them up, split them into sentences, uh, for both, the source and the targets. So we do like both directions. So this is like Tibetan to English, and we have another big list of English to Tibetan. And we also, went on the internet, tried to find as many translations as possible. And so that's actually the main part of the work I'm doing. So it's a lot of actually, project management, quality control, and how to put a price on, cleaning up uh, one book. Anyway, so it's actually quite boring, as work. And and so we found like for Tibetan and English, we reached around 1,500 published books, uh, not including 84,000 or Lotsawa House, which are like the two main repositories of publicly available translations. And we're thinking we'll probably reach around 2,000 books by the end of the year or beginning of next year. And so right now, so we have actually the way we have set up this project. So it's a 3 years project. And so during the first year, so 2023, so we're focusing on gathering as much data as possible without making any distinction between who translated them, whether it's good quality or not, where it comes from, etc. We just like got as much data as possible and just threw it like to a model, trained model on it, and we actually got really good results. So in general for machine translation, yeah. So here you can see we have this GitHub. So each of these repositories, they're basically folders with, one book or one set of files each. And so here, so we have like quite a lot of, folders. And so we just have like a lot of people, gathering them. And so as soon as we have, cleaned the text on both sides, then we have a model that automatically aligns, sentences on both sides. The technology we're using is actually, not a little bit old. It's called a VecAlign. It's using vectors, basically, And so we do a rough alignment first automatically, and we filter out at this point in time, we just filter out anything that, is too really not good enough. And so basically we just like discard, any sentence that really, is not good. We train, the models with, everything else. Yeah. And so on all the data that we are gathering is, put into this OpenPecha, repository where we're trying to gather as much, Buddhist data as possible. So right now we're focusing mainly on Tibetan English, but we're gradually adding, other data sets. And so this is, OpenPage is actually all the input or e-text files of BDRC. And OpenPage also collaborates with Google Books. Right now, we're OCRing around like 50,000 volumes that were scanned by BDRC. And so Google Books just agreed to OCR everything. Yeah. So this is, another area of work. And so with the OCR, OCR adds a lot of, more complications when you're dealing with manuscripts and handwritten, texts or woodblocks. Anyway, but I'm not going to spend too much time on this today. Okay, so maybe what I'll do, just to give you an idea of, how this, the models we have trained, work. Okay, I'll just compare it. So right now, the main player in machine translation, with Tibetan is Microsoft. Google doesn't have Tibetan yet. So there are a few projects in China who have trained machine translation, but because of political reasons, etc., they can't include too much Buddhist material. So their machine translation engines are specialized in legal language. So the Chinese government legal language and the government news websites. Anyway, and so actually, Microsoft Bing's main source of data is also in China, and so those who know a little bit of Tibetan, here I just just try to translate something, which is soke on Johnson Papas. Soke is the yeah the ordinary sentient beings and the bodhisattvas on the bhumis. And so here, ordinary sentient beings became two development. Bodhisattva became North Heart. Yeah, noble. I think that's a fair translation. But compared to last year, actually, it's improved a lot. Last year, last time I did a demo, on that I had okay, let me just try. Oops. This is bodhicitta. Last year, it translated it as pizza. I think I didn't prepare a screenshot. I have a screenshot somewhere, but it was pizza. Yeah. So if you said I take refuge, I praise bodhicitta or I bow down to bodhicitta, I would say yeah, praise the pizza. Anyway, so that's a good improvement. But basically, it all comes down to the data you give, the model to train. And so on the right side, so this is our model. And so, okay, I think it's, a little bit better. And, but right now this model is, in the beta testing phase. And so we're probably going to, release it publicly in 3 to 6 months. So right now it still has some issues. And so something that is quite common. Okay. Let me try something. Yeah, okay, yeah. So for example, here, the model, kind of hallucinates. And sometimes it just starts to spit out a lot of text that actually is not in the source string. So we still have some things that we need to work on. So here, for example, it says it is the same, which is not in the text. And so this is just something it, came up with. And so that's a problem with, generative, AI. And so this machine translation is using like, transformers. And so, and so that's something we need to, still like, polish and, improve. And let me show you something else. Yeah, maybe not a lot of you actually can read Tibetan, so maybe I should and no point to spend too much time on this, but yeah. Yeah, so this text actually, this is quite good translation. So what I wanted to show is that actually it manages to reorder, sentences, which is like, something that wouldn't happen like, 5, 10 years ago with statistical, machine translation. Maybe if some of you like, yeah, those who study Tibetan, probably you're familiar with the THL translation tool, website. So this just like takes every word and translates it, one after the other. And so, but here it actually generates like, proper sentences. Uh, so another issue we're having right now that we're, trying to fix is dealing with verses. And so it is actually, if you look at, so this is a prayer by uh, Baba. And so here actually the translation is pretty good. But yeah, as you see, we don't have like, if I, let's say, if I add, new lines after each verse, I won't get the new lines on this side. So there's, a few details like this that we need to polish. And something we're working on too is, adding the option, for translators to select a word. For example, here, out of concern for teaching. So here, for example, instead of concern, maybe worry would be, yeah, maybe worry would be more, appropriate. And so we'll add like, a dictionary, synonyms dictionary and then backgrounds. So the translator can just like select a different word and it generates, an updated version of, everything that follows, this. Anyway, so yeah, so that's basically where we're at. I and let me try Tibetan to English. Oh yeah, Chinese to English. We have like a Chinese to English, uh, model that does quite good. And so Pali Sanskrit to English, Pali Sanskrit to Tibetan, and English to Tibetan is actually also like really, really good. So this is probably like the most successful, model we have so far. Yeah, and so actually, later today I'm flying to India, and we're next month we're going to do uh, like public release or public announcement in the Tibetan community, of this model, and we're going to present it to His Holiness Dalai Lama, etc. Okay, so that's it. So basically, this model right now, has been trained on around 1.5 million sentences. Machine translation models are trained with what we call sentence pairs. So it's basically a Tibetan sentence, an English sentence, Tibetan sentence, English sentence. And Google usually, advises to start with 6 million sentence pairs, to get a model trained from scratch to work properly. Microsoft, talks about 7 million. And so right now, actually, with this model, what we did is we used, we did train model. So when I say we, it's actually the team in Berkeley who trains the model. So we just like prepare data, send it to Berkeley. I mean, we have developers, but they're, much better than us. And they first like, train some models from scratch, and then they actually, started to use 200 language, model called the NNLB, No Language Left Behind, that is, trained by Facebook, by Meta. And so basically you can take a base model and add, your own custom data, and you do what's called like fine tuning, and specialize that model so it works better, on specific new language or a genre or a different task. And that's it. So yeah, that's what we're working on. And yeah, so I would like to now, so I'm going to switch to just like talking about um yeah, what is a language model? So I think it's very important, for especially for like, everyone who's involved in everyone who is involved in like developing new technology or funding Buddhist or academic projects, to understand what I what LLMs and AI is. And I guess most of you have tried or uses ChatGPT. Is there anyone who never used ChatGPT? Oh, you should try. You're working on translation and editing in English, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just like do a very quick presentation of what is actually, ChatGPT, so ChatGPT is basically yeah, it's a chat functionality that was, added to an LLM. So it's a large language model. So language model is basically you take a lot of text. So in this case, they used, all of the internet pretty much. And they just like turned it into a statistical, data set. So they basically calculated, the relationship between each and every word in different contexts. And so this, kind of like, big statistical, data set. So that's what is called like, language model. And yeah, probably, I guess like all of you are familiar with, autocomplete. Like in your phone, when you start to write a sentence, it just shows the next word. Yeah, it makes a prediction, for the next word. So this is actually, like a very basic, language model. It just says, okay, so when you say, okay, let's look at this. So for example, hey, how are, then there's like, 70% chance that is going to be you. And how do we know that is, just by analyzing, what word, comes after hello, how are. Yeah. And it could be also how are they, how are things, how are fine. You see here 0.1%, so it's actually very little chance that fine arrives. And hello, how are animals? This is also like very rare to say. Yeah. And so this is, basically that's the concept of, language model. And so here, so that's ChatGPT actually, this is the only thing that it does. When you write something, and you ask it like, to complete, or you ask a question and it gives an answer, it's actually just predicting the next word. First the next word, and then it takes, the sentence like, how are you? And then after you, so what is the next word? There's a very high probability that I is going to come. It could be we, it could be thank you. Yeah. And animals, again, is very unlikely. That's it. So after I, then again, what is the next most probable word is am, or I feel, I don't. And again, animals, doesn't get a chance here. And after how are you, I am, I, yeah, then you have like fine, good, bad, etc., etc. So this is basically what ChatGPT is. So there's no uh, actual intelligence. There's no knowledge of, concepts, relationship between things, no word model, basically, behind it. And it's just because, this was prepared, on the whole internet. It saw so much, data, and calculated so much, like, probabilities of what the next word might be, that, it really sounds, very human. Yeah. And so something that actually, most of the time when you start to, to play with ChatGPT, what is really surprising is the creativity. So if we just like, used, uh, the most probable word, maybe when you play with, I mean, I did this quite a few times. Probably some of you also did this. When you start to use the autocomplete, on the phone, you just click on next word, next word, next word, and at some point it just gets into a loop. Yeah. And it just starts to spit the same thing again and again. And so this is just because it gets always like the most probable. So hello, how are you? I'm fine, because it's the highest, it's 50%. So basically, and actually that's, how the model is. It just like, yeah, if you decide to just take the highest one, that's what's going to happen. And so what ChatGPT did, and what, yeah, most like, I mean, all modern, language models do is that, or applications built on language models do, is that they added what they call temperature. And temperature is basically going to decide. So if it's like what we call like, cool or very cold, low temperature is you just take the highest next probable word. Yeah. And if you, yeah, so for example, for each word, then it just like, stays on, the most common sentence. If you bump up a little bit the temperature, what you do is you start to randomly pick, one of the highest, one of the top options. So instead of going for how are they, then you go to they or things, and you can just like, turn in on top. And if you want to, yeah, if you really go far with the temperature, you actually start to use like very low probability. Yeah. And so actually the most like, I mean, still likely, but not that common options, they create what is understood as creativity. So when someone is very creative, basically they have ideas that are plausible, make sense, but they're not like the most common idea that everyone would have. And so that's what it does. So it predicts the next word, but mixes up a little bit, and depending on, how you set it up. That's it. So that's actually, ChatGPT. So it is not really intelligent. It is just about finding, what is the next word. Yeah. Okay. And so yeah, and so when creating a chatbot, using a large language model, then you add a lot of pre-generated, or these are all like, manually created manually, like, question answers. So basically it's kind of like, also calculates the statistics on, question answers, and basically you can specialize the model to do question answering. Yeah. And so here, for example, this is actually real, data that was used for, one of the models like for alpaca. And yeah, so it's basically you just create a lot of question answers, samples, you add them, and you specialize the model, you add them to the training data, and you give it more weight, so it becomes specialized in answering questions. And so what ChatGPT and other of these, I mean, the creators of these tools do is that they try to cover a lot of different use cases. So here you see, I don't know, maybe it's too small. Can you read? No. Let me try to zoom in. Yeah. So we just think about what are the different use cases where generating new text, could be useful. So rewrite, generate. So here you can generate some ideas or whatever, write, um, explain the concept, explain the difference, explain meaning, explain purpose, give examples, give description, etc., etc., etc. And so basically by creating a data set that covers, this kind of use cases, then you can specialize, the tool to do a specific task. And so one of the reasons, I go into that much detail is that I think actually it is a lot of you, are involved in, Buddhist projects, like Sibeta and Kumarjiva. And so I think it would be really interesting to, look at all the cases that are covered already by, these models and see which one, would be relevant to, how people use or interact with Buddhist texts. So maybe for translation, for editing, or, readers, what would they want, to get, from, Buddhist data? Or what do you want to, what kind of new data you want to create, or what kind of question or queries, you want to have to ask, yeah? That's it. So I think that would be actually a very interesting area, of research. And and maybe, in a couple of years from now, when we have enough Buddhist data, hopefully a lot of Pali data too, and all this vernacular data, then we can actually design also a set of instructions of these in this kind of examples, task examples that are specifically relevant for Buddhism. In Tibetan, for example, the first use case that comes to mind is debate. So we can create a data set of debate, so the interactions that monks have, and fine tune, specialize the model in that format of interactions. And basically you'll have a model where with which you can debate. You can, ask questions, and you can use it, as a partner, especially when you begin to learn debate. It can be quite painful for, debate partners. And so this is actually, I think, a very relevant, use case. So this kind of use cases are used a lot with language education, for example. So one of the main challenges for anyone learning language is to find a conversation partner. And so there are now more and more of these, models and chatbots that are specialized in, helping you to practice, the new language. And so instead of just answering, they will also give feedback and say, oh yeah, here you use this in this way, but actually it should be, that way, etc. And if you had enough training data, the model is going to, your chatbot actually is going to work very well. Okay, so yeah. So the big problem that all these, ChatGPT, these LLM, have and are still, to solve is giving real information. And so here, those of you who are familiar with, Shantadeva's Bodhicharvatara, probably you'll recognize that, this is not the Bodhicharvatara. These are not the first verses. And so I asked this to, this morning, actually, I asked this to Google's, chatbot, which has like an LLM. And I was hoping it to do a better job than that, because Google has access to actually many translations of the text. With Google Books, they have a lot more, this kind of copyrighted data than let's say OpenAI and ChatGPT. But actually, it didn't manage to do it. And I mean, this is just a note. Like a few months ago, I tried it on another text, and it actually gave the text, word by word. It was exactly it. So maybe they're changing some policies or something in the back. Anyway, So basically, the main problem is that these LLMs and these tools don't tell the truth. They don't have facts, and that's because they just are good at predicting the next word. Maybe we could compare them as could compare them to someone. I mean, probably a lot of you have this friend who likes to use very fancy words without knowing what they actually mean. Yeah, just like very good talking, very good talker, and who can for people who have no clue what they're talking about, like, or are new to the subjects, they can sound very knowledgeable, but actually they have no clue what they're saying. And so that is really what this predicting the next words kind of models are. And so these days, a lot. I mean, that's actually one of the main problems that all the industry, all Silicon Valley is focusing on, these days. So like there's a lot of startups, working on that. So how do you actually give a actual, factual world model, to these tools? So basically, when they say something, they actually know what I mean. They say real facts. And so the main solution, that I mean, the solution that at least the major players, are looking into is, using what we call knowledge graphs. So a knowledge graph is basically just like a representation of, the relationship between concepts. So here, for example, you see we have Mona Lisa and Da Vinci, and there's a relationship. So Da Vinci painted Mona Lisa. Da Vinci is about, this, and, uh, that's it. And James, a random, person, likes the Mona Lisa, etc. So basically having this relationship between concepts and actually factual relationships, is the equivalent of someone who really knows what they're talking about. And so one thing that one way to another approach to get like factual information is to give ChatGPT to give it all text. Let's say, for example, if you were to ask ChatGPT, what are the Four Noble Truths, and let's say ChatGPT doesn't really know. So one way to give that information, that factual information, would be to give the Sutra of the Four Noble Truths, to ChatGPT, and say, okay, so here's a sutra. You just give the whole sutra, and you say, okay, now what are the Four Noble Truths? And then it'll get the information, from the sutra, and give you, the factual information. But the problem with that approach is that, basically each time you ask the question, it has to read the whole sutra, or it has to process the whole sutra. And so this is not really like a very, efficient way to do it. And so now, basically, what the industry is working on is, how to pair knowledge graphs. So knowledge graphs are very accurate, structural knowledge, domain-specific knowledge, etc. But they're not good talkers. They can't speak, in a human language. This is really just like something that can be used by machines. And on the other side, you have the large language models like, GPT-3 or whatever, which don't have the facts. So basically combining these two, could, I mean, will actually allow to have, tools that really give like very, very nicely said factual information. And so the issue with this is that it is a lot of work. So creating a knowledge graph to cover all the facts, of the world is a lot of work. And Buddhism is not the priority of the industry. There's no real market, at least, for now, and not enough startups and money, etc. in this. And so, this is something that hopefully, we can, different Buddhist organizations, tech organizations can collaborate on, and actually create a knowledge graph, for all Buddhism. And actually, yeah, this year we're starting, project. I'm flying to India later today to start a project where we are going to try at least to create a knowledge graph in Tibetan, for Buddhist knowledge. And so we'll start with all the metadata about books that was created by BDRC and Dila too. So it's in linked data. So it's just a form of knowledge graphs. And so we're start to by combining all this Buddhist linked data together with the knowledge found in this dictionary. So 200 volumes Manam dictionary, and gradually we'll try to build it up, link it with knowledge found in other languages, etc., other Buddhist languages, and hopefully in a few years we'll have actually a knowledge base, a factual, kind of like, database that tools will be able to use, for, chatbots or various applications, and translation too, actually. Okay. And so, yeah, so the thing is that extracting all this information is, very challenging. So if we just think about, if we replace like Mona Lisa by the name of a text, and replace Leonardo da Vinci by Gampopa, or a master. So how do we find the information from text that link these two entities, or these two concepts? How do we actually get? So I mean, if we do it like on a very small data set, then it's doable. We can ask someone to go read the text and say, okay, so where are the entities, and what is the relationship between different entities? Yeah. And so, but if you think about like just like Buddhist texts in Tibetan, we estimate around like 40 to 50,000 volumes. So that's a lot of books, and a lot of basically it would be like really costly to to extract information from there manually. And so something that actually these LLMs are quite good at doing. Where did I put the screen? Okay, here. Yeah. You see, we did some tests. So this is ChatGPT. And so, yeah, we did some tests like, so you're a knowledge graph engineer. So because it's predicting the next words, we have to, give it like some context. And so basically it will find, in all the internet, it will have seen patterns where an actual graph engineer is talking to a user, and all the discussion is actually part of the data set. So it will be able like to predict the right next words in a pattern that matches, what we're looking for. Yeah. So here I just said, you're a knowledge graph engineer. I will give you a Buddhist text, extract all entities, then link them and export them as triples in TTL format. So TTL, that's one of the graph formats. And okay, so it says, of course, and it's nice they made these tools to be quite polite. And usually I answer thank you when I get an answer. So, okay, so I'm going to give it, so this is the colophon of a prayer. And so I picked a colophon that's a little bit tricky, because here you see the repeated request of the bards, Chogyur Lingpa was in the north, And so here it has like, for example, this 14, this is just like a page number that's in the middle. I wanted to see, what it does with that. And the actual authorship statement is this. This text was committed to writing. Yeah. So even for a human, it's not, that easy to figure out. If you're not like, familiar with this kind of thing. So let's see what it does. Let's hope it. Oh, unusual activity from your system. Okay. Okay, so you see, it really moves one word at a time. It's just predicting the next word. It's done. Okay, okay, yeah. And so this is like a format that can be used directly, uh, by CBeta or BDRC, etc., to give information about the text and help to make the search more powerful. And then if this kind of information is linked to a language model, then it's going to work. But actually, yeah, most of everything seems to be correct, all the relationships. So here you see in the middle, this is the relationship, and you have the two entities. So this entity, and one made a request to the other. Okay, so I tried, something similar. So I already did it. So I gave a piece of a text from Abhidharma and say, okay, just like find the entities in this and try to extract them and tell us like the relationship between, the entities. And so you have here visual form perceived through visual cognition. Visual form divided into this and that. Visual form shit divided into long, narrow, tall, short, yeah, etc., etc. So all of this can be then exported in this like TTL or graph format, and that can be used as a source of fact, to uh, you know uh, LLMs or ChatGPT or something like this. Yeah, that's it. And yeah, it also can do a lot of more creative things. For example, here, because it saw so much information on the internet, it knows a lot about people in different contexts, their problems, etc. It's not that it knows; it's that yeah, basically it can reproduce text that is similar to yeah. So here I just like give some context. I say, okay, I'm a teenager somewhere, and uh, I have like this 8 verses of mind training, and I actually want them to be, in a Ed Sheeran song, because the style I have like is, too boring for me. And actually, I actually it's not practical enough. So I would like to have it like, something that I can put into practice, in my daily life. Yeah. So okay, so here's the text. So this is the Longer Tamba's 8 verses of training mind. Okay. And so yeah, here, nice, it added an emoji. Uh, so here, that's the verse, but as a song, and it says like on Monday, just like sing that verse, and this is what you should do. So every morning when you wake up, take a moment to remind yourself, see value in all people. Uh, the behavior throughout the day, make an effort, okay, and celebration at night, reflect on positive interaction you had and how it made you feel. Yeah. And so, yeah, so this kind of application actually can be really useful for, to get some ideas or inspiration or understand better. So, yeah, as I do work as a translator sometimes, for some Tibetan teachers, and many times, they contact me and they say, "Oh, yeah, tomorrow I have to give a teaching, in that place, and for this kind of people, I really don't know much about them." Their background, etc. Can you just like tell me a little bit, or what would be more relevant, etc. Yeah, and so this is actually things that these model this AI can help with. Okay, how much time do I have left? I don't have time left. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, basically training these things take a lot of data. Yeah, 4 to 6 billion pages of text that we need. Okay, so I'll jump through all of this. Um, yeah, okay. Yeah, and so just like very quickly, so AI, basically AI is possible, only when there is a need for AI for development and when there are resources. So where there's demand, it's basically just like anything. It's a offer and demand, thing. And so, yeah, I think it would be really good. I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this. So I think I have like probably I'm one of the Buddhists who has the biggest number of Christian and Bible apps and Quran apps and Jewish apps on their phone. So I really try to see how do they do, what do they do, what are the needs, what are the problems they solve, etc. And so so I think especially like for Sibeta and Kumarjiva, I think it would be really useful to look at what they do for the Bible. I think the Bible is the most advanced in many areas. For example, they have like a translation AI powered translation tool. They translate the Bible in 3,160 languages. It's all collaborative online. Many organizations, many resource texts. So you have like Bibles and commentaries and the sources to do like critical edition work, etc., all in one platform. So maybe that's something we should aspire to. So here, this is that's one of their tools with the Bible in Tibetan. There's a Bible in Sanskrit and Pali. I'm not sure. You see, you have like word by word and dictionaries, etc. So having this paratext, I think it would be like a great tool to look into. And you have like the most famous Bible app, 600 million installs. And so this is the Tibetan and Sanskrit Bible parallel. The Bible has better apps than for Buddhist languages than Buddhists have in these languages. And something that they do, your version, something that they do actually, that I think that's a big part of their success. They have what they call reading plans. And so basically you have like 5 days on how to solve depression with citations from different Christian texts, etc. And you have like thousands and thousands of different community contributions on how to use these texts to deal with daily issues. They have 100 million installs for their children Bible app. So it's a actually game. Uh, yeah, and my kids really love it. Uh, Jennifer doesn't like it that much, but they play with it. But for research, I would really advise to have a look at Logos. So this is one of the most advanced, research tools for like a literature that has many versions. It's basically the very similar case as us. And there are things like specialized PowerPoint builder where you can search for things, and there's already like a lot of like contributions from other people. Anyway, okay, yeah. And another one, I think so this is for Peter. I think the best case of like, reading focused, kind of app would be Sepharia. It's also really good, to look at. And it's all built, for reading, not for search. Logos is more for search. And this is really to have like a very comfortable reading experience. Yeah. Anyway, so that's it. So I would just like to conclude with to answer Professor Peter Skilling's question of what is AI. And so this is actually a French AI specialist who compares AI to a hammer and says trying to nail and trying to hammer nails with your hand can be very painful, not very efficient. So actually a hammer is really good, but the hammer still is just a tool basically, and it needs a hand to drive the nails down. And so basically, at least at this stage, and probably for the next few decades, it won't be more than a hammer. Yeah, that's it.
Correct timing, that power is finished. Thank you all for sharing this. I really spent a lot of time preparing. It's a difficult topic, and And thank you for also being so patient with this topic. If in the future any of you is interested in these things and all the other developments in Tibetan text, and you're welcome to contact him. 就是谢谢大家，因为这个讲座确实不好讲。然后，如果未来大家有兴趣对于藏文佛典的 AI 技术相关的发展，非常欢迎你们可以再跟他联系。